Hey guys, it's Mr. Crayfish and welcome back. It's been a while since I've uploaded on this channel, but today I thought I would do like an entire showcase of the new model creator update, because I did publish a video on my main channel which kinda showed it off, but I thought I would do a bit more of an in-depth showcase for the people that want to see it, because I'm sure you want to know everything that's new in this brand new update, because it's amazing. You know, this is an update that the model creator has needed for a very, very long time, and it added in some really crucial features that are very important to creating models for Minecraft. Now, before I do start, I want to give a shout out to Hold Your Waffle. This person was actually the one who got me back into, you know, developing the model creator, because what they did is they actually converted the project to a Gradle project. Now, if you don't know what it is, essentially it's a system that automatically downloads all the dependencies and also builds it automatically, and you don't really have to worry about anything, which is amazing. And this just made the whole process of developing the model creator a lot easier, especially when building it, because previously I had to kind of like export it, then include all the libraries, and it was a pain. So thank you so much for updating. Maybe you're watching it, maybe you're not, but thank you for your work. But I think we're ready to start going through the changes. Now, I got a list next to me that is in no particular order. There's bug fixes, there is minor features, there's major features, so we're just going to be going through them, no particular order at all. But yeah, it's good to be back on this channel. I just want to quickly say that it's good to be back here. If you guys would love to see some more videos on this channel, because this is my development channel, it's supposed to be a little bit more technical, you know, a little bit more in-depth for the people that want more information. You know, let me know down in the comments. Maybe go ahead, drop a like down below, subscribe if you're new around here. But let's start going through this list right now. So the first change is that ray tracing is now fixed. Now, you might not have even known about this feature, but essentially what you can do is, if you want to select that element, instead of having to click up here, which, you know, is one way of doing it, a quicker way is to actually just look at it, press Control and then left click, and it will select that element. Now, a problem in the last version is that when you would zoom in and out, it wouldn't be the correct projection, and that causes issues when you're ray tracing. So now I fixed it up, and doesn't matter where you've got like the element, we could put it down in the bottom left corner there, we can still click on it precisely. Like if we like zoom super close here, like I'll like click slightly to the right of it, it doesn't work, but if you actually click on it, it works. So, but this is extremely helpful if you've got a model that has a lot of elements, because now you don't need to go through the hundreds of elements in the list. You can now just simply select it in the 3D view here. Next change is that the elements now have shading. You might have just noticed this when we zoomed up on here a few seconds ago, but as you can see, the model now has shading. So the top is a little bit lighter, the south side is a little bit darker, the east side, oh sorry, that's the west side, is a little bit darker, and then if we look at the north side, that is the darkest face on this element. Actually, the bottom I think is the actual darkest. Yeah, it looks like the bottom is the darkest face on the element there, but that just adds in a whole new feel to the model creator. I remember this like being distinctly a problem when I was creating my models for my vehicle mod, because even though the elements were there, because there was no shading, you couldn't really see it because of all the textures. So we could go ahead and we could load up maybe something like the full drive here from my vehicle mod, and you can see that we can actually identify all the elements on this model. A problem was like here at the hood. See how it's like actually got a bit of depth to it here? Before you couldn't really see that depth when there wasn't any shading. So essentially your model in the model creator now will reflect what it's going to look like in game. Alright, let's go into the next change here, and you probably noticed this, but I didn't really want to mention it just because I wanted to make it a separate change. But when you do click on an element now, there will actually be an outline around it to let you know that is the selected element. Really helpful, because previously you kind of just like clicked on it and you didn't really know if it was the selected one or not, but now that we've got something visual, it's helpful. It's really, really helpful. Nothing really more to say about that, but let's go on to the next one, which is basic optimization. This is a really cool feature, and I would consider this a major feature in this update, and that is optimization. Now, one thing that is important when it comes to, making models, not only just for like Minecraft, but literally every single game, right, is we want to make sure the performance of them is the best that they can be. And one way in Minecraft to make sure that your models are the best they can be is to make sure you're not rendering any faces that you can't see, because there's no point, So if you can't see that face of that element, why render it at all? It's only going to, slow down your GPU. It's going to make your GPU work harder to render the element, but there's no point at all. So there is a slight problem with this model in particular when you optimize it. If you can see at the front here, we have this glass in front of the glowstone there. That glowstone lamp will actually kind of get disabled because it thinks that it can't be seen, but in fact we have a translucent texture. This is just kind of a downside of this optimization algorithm. It was only supposed to be a basic one, but let's go ahead and I'll get something a little bit more, this model's that model was quite crazy. Let's just go ahead and grab this chair instead, and I'll show you what I mean. So if we actually go ahead and zoom in on this arm here, if we zoom in a little bit, as you can see, we can see the top face of this element here, the top face of that, when we actually zoom in inside here. However, if we're outside of it, we can't see it at all. So why are we even rendering it? It's like there's no point. It's just going to affect the performance of the game even more. But now what we can do is, if we go to model at the top here and we go to optimize, what this is going to do is disable that face. So my program's going to go through, iterate through all the elements, check all their faces, see if they're inside another element. If they are, go ahead and disable that face. So are you sure you want to optimize the model? It's a good idea to save, but there is, which we'll get to it soon, but there is a new feature in the model creator which it kind of defeats the purpose. That defeats the purpose of saving it. But let's go ahead. Let's press yes here, and it will come up with a dialog here saying we optimizing the model disabled 11 faces. So there we go. We disabled 11 faces on this model that will never be seen and will never be rendered now, which is good because it's going to make the performance of the game better. But as you can see, when we zoom up in this corner now, we can no longer see that face, which is good, especially if you've got a model that has a lot of elements on it, such as let me go to this. I'm just going to show you this because this just shows how important this really is. So as I mentioned, we don't want to render any of the faces that can't be seen. Let's run the optimize on the full drive here and have a look at this. Oopsie, disable. Oh no, this one's already optimized. Let me go ahead. Let me load a previous version of the full drive. I think number 17 was the one that this one here. It's kind of got some broken textures on it, but it doesn't matter. If we go to optimize here, have a look at this. 143 faces have been disabled because they can't be seen at all. Now this is insane because disabling those will actually have a boost in game. It's actually quite expensive to render all these faces in the actual game, and disabling them will actually have a noticeable improvement, and I'll have to be doing that to all my models in the vehicle mod real soon, because I think a lot of them are unoptimized, which I have noticed recently is actually chugging the game a little bit. So if we disable all these faces, it's going to dramatically improve my vehicle mod, but that just shows you why optimizing your models is important, because it could disable a lot of faces that don't need to be rendered. And it also as well makes the file size smaller, which is good if you're wanting people to download your mod. But that pretty much covers that. There is another way to optimize it, but we'll get to that real soon. Alright, next feature is Untextured Faces. will now export when saving the project. This is something that was annoying quite a lot. I think if we go ahead and try to load a project here, maybe like four-wheel drive 1. Oh no, actually, hold on, let's go ahead. Alright, let me go ahead and load something else. I think it's the Tinny which has a problem. Let's go ahead, let's load Tinny Model 1. This is a vehicle from my vehicle mod. Let's go ahead and load that up. And as you can see, there is nothing here on the kind of canvas, but if we take a look over to the right here, we actually have a bunch of elements. Now the problem, what was happening is any element or any face that wasn't textured wouldn't get included when you exported the model. However, now when you actually save a project, it will get included. When you export it, it won't. It's only when you actually save it that it will get included. But this is a problem especially because like it would be annoying to have to re-enable all these faces. So unfortunately, this model file is kind of broken now because there's no way that I can enable all the faces on every single element. You know, like look at this. I have to go one by one on each element in order to actually restore them all, which is crazy. So I've kind of solved that problem now in any sort of project files. All faces will get saved now, not just the textured ones. Alright, so one of my favorite features about this new update and extremely useful. Let's go ahead, let's just find a model maybe we could load up here. I've got so many because of my vehicle mod. Let's go ahead, let's get the gun workbench. I love this model. I think it looks amazing. But a new feature in the model creator is we now have undo/redo support, something that is kind of essential to any program, not just like a modeling software. Any program needs undo and redo. So if I was to click on the bench here and I was to delete it, oopsie, we can actually now restore it simply by doing Control-Z. There we go. It's restored back. It is a little bit glitchy. Oh no, it's kind of just happens from time to time, I guess. But this is extremely handy in case you make any mistakes, because let's say you got rid of like this element here. It's kind of hard to restore that one because of how many sort of properties we got going on here. We have rotation, it has a custom it has a custom origin, the length and everything of it is completely different to all the elements here. So to restore that would take a while, but now we can simply just press Control-Z to restore it. You can also do Control-Y to do redo as well. So redo, undo. So I think you get the basic gist of undo and redo. Now I wasn't going to get to this, but I think I'll just do this feature now because it kind of ties into the undo/redo support. If you go to file here and you go to settings, in the general tab here we actually have a undo/redo limit. Now the thing with like undoing and redoing and how it works in my program is essentially it saves the state of the program. So every time you make a change, it essentially creates a copy of that model and pushes it to a stack. And then when we undo and redo, we simply, what was the last change on that stack? Let's grab that, put it back into the program. And the more you do that, the more memory that is going to the model creator is going to start chewing up. So something that helps out is setting a limit to it, and right now it is 60. So you can make 60 changes in my model creator and undo them all, but once you go over that kind of limit, anything after that 60 will get scrapped. So it's important as well to make sure you are saving while you are creating your model, because if you try to undo all the way back, you're only going to be able to go back 60 changes. But I've added in an option here which allows you to increase it. There is a little bit of a warning which I just explained there, but you can increase this to whatever you want. Just be aware that it will increase the memory of the program, and it's kind of at your own risk that you put it high. Like I could probably get away with having like 150 changes if I really wanted to, but generally enough, like 60 or 50 should be enough, especially if you're creating like a small model. Like it's like tell me a person that has like, you know, undoed 50 times, like legitimately. Like it doesn't really happen. It's usually only when you make like one minor mistake you undo once or twice, but definitely not like 50 times, but it's just there just in case, and you can increase it if you really want to. But yeah, some more things to the settings menu is the assets path. There's so many things these features tie into. I guess we'll get back to this later. We'll get back to this assets path later. If we go to appearance tab here, this is cool. So this is why you saw my model. If we go here, create a new element, and we just, you know, increase the size of this. This is why you see my element actually being red here. Previously it was kind of like, you know, like multicolored, but what I did is I went to appearance and we can change the color of all the faces now. So if we go ahead, select yellow here, and we close that off, as you can see the north face here is now yellow. So you can customize this however you want. I do like the red mainly because it's like, you know, red's my color, you know. Red's my color. Now there is an option down below to reset the colors in case you want to go back to the default colors. There will be more options in here later to change colors of more things in the program. Like I think I'm going to add an option to change the axis colors, maybe like the grid color, maybe like the background color, all those things. So they should be coming out in the next update. But just a very minor feature, but you know, in my opinion, is really cool. All right, now I want to get back to that assets path. So what I'm going to do is go on to this next feature, which is the ability now to extract Minecraft's assets. And this is something that so many people always kind of you know, ask me, like, hey, you know, how do you get the textures for Minecraft, Mr. Crayfish? Like, where do you download them from? Well, essentially all I did was extract them from the jar files that the Java edition of the game downloads. And this tool here helps you extract those assets, because instead of having to browse through all the folders, now my program will automatically do it for you, and all you have to do is select the Minecraft version. So if you want to get the 1.10 assets, you can. We can go down here like 1.13. You can even get the snapshots as well, which is really cool. So yeah, we could extract the 1.13 textures. So once you've done that, click extract. You have to select a location. So I got Minecraft assets. Select that folder that you want to extract it into. So what it will do is it will use that folder, and then inside that folder it will create another folder for that version of Minecraft. So it will create the 1.13.2 folder, and then inside that one, that's where the assets will go into. So if we click select here, it's going to start extracting it. This will take a little bit. It is extracting a lot of assets. Minecraft has a lot of assets, so it does take a little bit here to extract it, but just wait for that to complete, and you should be all good. And then if I go ahead and open this up now, say documents, Minecraft assets, my organization here is extremely bad, but 1.13, as you can see, we got assets. Go into here, we can get access to all the textures now, which is extremely useful when you're creating models in my model creator. We've also got, you know, we got everything essentially, not just the textures, but you do have access to, you know, all the block states. We have access to all the models too. So if you wanted to import models from Minecraft, you can do. We could even try that right now, which is really cool. So what I want to do is come back here real quickly to the settings, and what I've done is the assets path here is I've set it as the assets folder in that 1.13 folder we just extracted. So essentially I've selected this folder here, and if we go back here, you'll see that select this one here. So this is where all the versions are, 1.13, select assets, select that, and essentially what will happen is when you import JSON files, because they don't have their textures attached to the JSON file, you know, it's a JSON file, it doesn't have anything but text inside of it. It's going to use this location in order to find the textures that it needs for the model. So we'll go ahead, file, import JSON here. We'll make sure we go to the folder here real quickly. So Minecraft assets 1.13 Let's go to the models folder where they have all the JSON files. These didn't have textures attached, so let's just go ahead. Let's load up something maybe like carved pumpkin, whatever. Import that, and that did not work. Hey, there we go. So as you can see, it actually loaded up the texture, even though the JSON file has nothing to do with the textures at all. It looked in that location that we set as the assets path and found the texture there. Let's go ahead, let's find something a little bit more exciting. Let's go Cauldron. I think Cauldron's like one of my favorite models in the game, mainly because it's the most kind of 3D model there is. And have a look at that, it loaded up perfectly in my program. I should mention that 1.13 isn't like fully supported in my program yet, but I'm going to be working towards getting it, making it work. I'm most likely going to have like when you click on new here, it's going to open up a dialog, and you have to like, select which version you are creating this model for. Now, I was going to go over this feature, but I kind of haven't completed it, but there is now keyboard shortcuts in the program. So if you press like Control E, that will create a new element and you didn't have to actually click the button. We can actually do delete now, and that will get rid of an element. It should get rid of it. Okay, it looks like it's not getting rid of it, unfortunately. There is other features, like I think, let's have a look here. Yeah, like Control N will create a new project. We can do Control O to load a project, Control S to save a project. There isn't shortcuts for the JSON stuff. I think the settings one is broken. Yeah, it doesn't work at all. There is some more, obviously, like Control Y and Control... Oh, that's supposed to be Control Z. I don't know what's going on with that. We have display properties. We'll get to that soon. We have optimize. So if you press Control Shift N, oh no, actually Control Shift O is the shortcut. Yeah, as you can see, it's kind of broken. So I'm just gonna skip that for today. I'll do it in like another video going over all the keyboard shortcuts. This next feature is kind of helpful, I guess, and that is the ability now to toggle the visibility of elements. So you might have noticed in the list at the top right here that there's now kind of like this little toggle button. If we click it, we can stop it rendering. If we click it again, we can make it render, or essentially toggling the visibility. Now there is a keyboard shortcut for it as well. If you press Control F, that will toggle the visibility. So it is good if you're wanting your workflow to be a lot faster in this program. Something very minor is if we go to more now, there will no longer be, I think, the Planet Minecraft and Minecraft forums menu items. I got rid of them because they're essentially kind of like dead platforms that, it just like, especially on Minecraft forum, nobody really uses that anymore. It was mainly used for mods, but people moved over to CurseForge. It really wasn't a place that I wanted to promote my model creator, mainly because like managing it and everything is so tedious. I can do it so much better on my website. Another minor change is that the arrow icons now have been improved. So previously they were kind of like a flat icon, but I decided to change them to more of like a 3D looking icon. It has like some shading now, so you probably didn't notice it when you were upgrading it, but if you do go back to like pre-4 and then you go back to this version, you will notice that they are slightly different. Just some really slight UI changes. Alrighty, so hopefully you've stuck around to the end because we're going to be checking out two major features now. I didn't purposely put this at the end. I said this was in no particular order at all. But these are two major features that you guys are going to love. Now, this is what I was saying at the start of the program. This is a crucial feature that model creators need when they're creating models for Minecraft, and that is the ability to set to the display properties. A very important part of the model. It's like almost as important as the model itself, because when you load your model up into the game, you want to make sure when you're holding it in third person, first person, when the model's on your head, that it is actually positioned correctly. And a problem with the old version of my model creator is you kind of couldn't control that, and then if you wanted to do it, you had to do it through the text file. I got away with it, for ages. I used my model creator for my vehicle mod and all that stuff, and I got away with it. So I'm fine, but for people that may be a little bit more less experienced, having something visual is a lot better. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna load up a project. Maybe we'll load up like a weapon from my weapon mod here. So here we go. We've got the assault rifle, and if we were to go to model here, display properties, this is what it looks like in the GUI. Sorry. And as you can see, it's not really, displayed properly, but we can fix that up. So what I'm going to do is increase the scale here to 75%, and we can, rotate this. We can do so many things. We could, position it, move it over like this. So this is just the GUI. So that looks pretty good. We can also, if we want to, we can disable and enable this. So if you do disable it, it won't be included in the list of display properties when you export it. But if you do enable it, it will. Disabling it will kind of use whatever the default display properties are. I find it best to make sure you do actually define all the display properties for your model, so you don't have any odd looking ones. As you can see, when it's on the ground here, it doesn't really look that good. Let's go back up to like 75%. Hopefully, oh my god, that looks like an Uzi. That looks like an Uzi right there. As you can see, this is looking a whole lot better now. It's not positioned in the center correctly, so let's go ahead and just offset that a little bit. It also goes into the ground a little bit, so we could translate it up like that, and it makes it look a whole lot better. We're not going to rotate it. You could rotate it on the x-axis, could rotate it on the z, really up to you. In the item frame, again, this looks horrible, but I'm not gonna do all of these here. It just gives you guys an idea. We got the head here. We got first person. Maybe you would want to fix this one up. First person here might also increase the scale of this to like 1.4. It's a little bit big, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So yeah, we got that there, and then third person, of course, you can fix that up. And then this looks like a mini assault rifle, but we could make this a whole lot bigger, like 75%. Again, just thought that was a good number. So now you can see that this is definitely looking a whole lot better than what it was looking before. And to do this, through text file and having to reload it in game takes a while. This now takes seconds compared to what could be like half an hour of work is now a couple of minutes, which is crazy. So this feature is extremely useful to not only myself, because I rely on display properties a lot, but like everybody else. There is some presets at the top here which may be useful to you. So I've essentially added the default item and the default block properties. So if you are creating a block or you're creating an item, these are the default properties of those. So maybe you want to apply them and then build off of them. There is also a preset at the top here called Model Creator Block, and this is kind of specifically designed towards actually it could be designed towards anybody, but I personally would use this a lot, because when I'm designing most of the time, let's go new model, let's hop out of here. I usually make the south face my front face. So if I was to go ahead and just create an element here, which is 16 by 16 by 16, and let's go ahead, let's take that back one. Let's also just duplicate that, bring that forward to 15. Let's shrink it to 1. We'll also shrink this, right? So I essentially want this front face here to be the front of my block. However, if we go to, actually we'll give this a quick texture real quickly, just so it's easy to see. Okay, it looks like we got some textures already. Let's go ahead, pop that on. So, okay, now we can easily tell this is the front of my block. If we go to display properties now, hold up, that looks a little bit scuffed. I think it's because we got that open. Let's go to display properties again. There we go, not stretched anymore. That looks, actually, let's go ahead, let's apply the default block. There you go. So as you can see, when we apply the default block properties, it's actually facing the wrong way. When we go to the ground, that's fine. When we put it in an item frame, it's actually backwards. When we have it on a head, it's backwards. So essentially everything is backwards. Look, it's facing to the right here. Third person, it's like facing down like that. But if we go ahead and we apply a model creator block, this actually makes everything correct. So you know, that is the correct position. The front face should be kind of facing towards us in third person. First person, it's correct. On the head, it's now pointing to the front. When it's in an item frame, now this is kind of a significant change. I decided to make it when you put it in an item frame, it's a lot bigger than the default block. I think that's a cool improvement. Instead of having the, you know, the block being really small, why not display it a little bit bigger? When it's on the ground, that's the same, and then when it's in a GUI, it looks correct compared to, you know, default block or even like default item. The default item definitely makes things look weird in the GUI, but that's just kind of how that works. So model creator block, very useful to myself, but maybe useful to a bunch of you guys as well. Alright, so I think we're about to hit the last feature we're looking at today, and that is the brand new exporting dialog for, you know, exporting the model to a JSON file. So when you click it now, it no longer just brings up a file chooser. When you do bring it up, it brings up a dialog here, which you can enter the name of your model. So this is, and it kind of looks like a cabinet from my furniture mod. We can select a destination. I'm not going to really change that around. You can, you know, click browse, select where you want the file to output. But we have some options here. So we can actually optimize the model straight from the export menu. Now the advantage of optimizing it through the export is it doesn't apply it to your project, it just applies it to the exported model. So maybe you don't want to disable the faces in your project, but when you export it you do. That's the advantage over this. We have include display properties, so maybe you don't want to include, you know, the third person, first person display definitions. You can actually disable that if you want to. But, you know, mainly you would probably want to include it. And we also have include element names. Now this is just maybe you're wanting to go into the JSON file later on and you want to be able to identify what elements are in there, because when there's no name next to it, it's kind of hard to identify it. So if we were to go ahead and rename this to, you know, to like base, and then this one here to door, when we actually do export this, it's going to include the base and the door to each of the elements, and then you can easily identify which elements are what in the JSON model file. So let's go ahead, let's actually export this. Maybe we'll just export it as cabinet, export, and then we can also open the folder straight away, which is useful. So if we take a look in the exported file, you'll see we have our display properties here that we customized in the program. If we scroll down here, as you can see in the elements here, we have the names included. So you can see that was the base, and then the next one here was the door. And I think as well, if you notice in the door here, we actually have the north face not defined in here, because that was actually optimized because you couldn't see the north face of the door. But that pretty much wraps up this video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video going over all the new features. Definitely a really awesome update, and something that's been needed for a very, very long time, especially the display definitions, display properties, one of the highlight features of this update. And if you are like a resource pack or mod developer, I would love to see, you know, any sort of models you create with this program. So, you know, send some screenshots over on Twitter. You could also send it to my Facebook if you really want to. But yeah, if you do send it, I may retweet it or repost it onto my feed and, you know, showcase your work. Or if you want to take this to the next level, and a suggestion that I suggest to use is you go to screenshot up here, save to disk, and you can actually save a screenshot straight away through the program here. You don't actually have to use any sort of external tools. That's going to end off this video. Drop a like down below if you'd love to see more of these kind of model creator updates. Also subscribe as well, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.